Hello everyone, we are back for another Digimon video. This time we are doing a deck profile for one of my favorite decks from EX5, and that is the Deva decks, or the Four Sovereigns. So we're just going to go over pretty much the contents of the deck and then just basic strategies and things of that nature. So let's just get right on in. So we're going to start off, as I normally do with almost every video, we're going to start off with lowest level first and work our way all the way up, and then we're going to work into the choice picks and things like that. So first and foremost, we're going to start off with the Devas, which is the lowest level in this deck, which is level 5. I run 2 Antilamons in here, primarily because of Alliance. I do use Mother D Reaper, and since I can have Antilamon in the field, use Mother D Reaper to alliance with, is effectively swinging with 23k attack and 2 checks. And if you're at 3 life or less, it's a free heal. Because unless you run into a security bomb, more than likely you're going to survive the checks. Okay, so I run 2 copies of Antilamon, 1 copy of Mahiramon, and for the most part in the Deva decks, most of the Devas are going to have at least the same on-play skill, which is on-play, draw a card, look at your field, look at your trash. You may play 1 Deva from your hand to your open raising area whose name does not match either one. So yeah, and also for the Devas, all their inheritable effects are based on color. So all the red have the same effect, all the green have the same effect, etc., so forth and so on. But yeah, so we have 1 Mahiramon, 1 Majiramon. Mahiramon lets you trash. When this card is played, trash the. When one of your Digimon is played, sorry, you may trash the top Digivolution card of one of your opponent's Digimon, so not outside the realm of normalcy what blue does. This one, Mahiramon, when you use an option card that costs at least 1 or more, gain a memory. And then next we're going to run into the red ones. We won 1 Pajiramon on deletion. If your opponent has a tamer, gain 1 memory. Inheritable, security attack +1. Forgot to mention inheritable for the blue side. On attacking, gain a memory. We also run 1 Endearamon on deletion, draw a card. And then 1 Sandiramon. Alright. Next, we're going to get into the greens. We run 1 Kumbiramon. Its skill is all turns, one of your opponent's Digimon becomes suspended. Draw 1 card. So it does help with the need for this deck for card draw, because despite all the Devas having on-play draw 1 card, there is some issue with draw potential in this deck due to the lack of normal Digivolution. But we'll get into that a little bit later. All right, next we run 1 Vajramon. He has the same skill as Majiramon. When you use an option card for cost 1 or more, gain 1 memory. Green line has piercing for the inheritable. And we run 1 Vikarlamon. And skill, when it attacks and deletes an opponent's Digimon battle and survives, unsuspend this card. Then we run the black ones. We run 1 Makuramon. I do keep Makuramon in here only because, well, it's the Deva deck. I have to have at least 1 copy of all the Devas, so Makuramon gets in there for that. Its ability is not that great. Opponent's turn, all your opponent's tamer with a play cost of 2 or less can suspend. It'd be a lot better if it was at least 3, but 2, I haven't found many to any times when that effect actually mattered in a game. But for the black ones, their inheritable is blocker. So let's readjust these just a touch. All right. So for the next ones, we have 2 copies of Sanduramon. Sanduramon, it gets 2 copies. 1, because it has the decoy skill, and 2, because I do like the black inheritable much more for this deck than any of the other ones. The reason being, if you're going to blast Digivolve with this deck, for the most part, there's been a few times when I'm swinging with one of the 4 Sovereign. I'm only swinging with 12, so there's been enough times when I run into another top end in my opponent's security, it gets deleted, and then overflow happens and my turn passes over. So I'd rather be defensive in nature. So I have the opportunity to block a low power Digimon, or if it's a high power Digimon, I know and I get to choose when it gets to be deleted that way, rather than running into security with security attack +1 and being unpleasantly surprised at times. But yeah, that's why we favor black a little bit more and why we have 2 copies of Sinduramon. We also have 2 copies of Katuramon as well. This one's a little different. Its base skill is just blocker. That's it. Well, in addition to it's a normal on play draw card and inheritable blocker. Okay, so that's it for all the Devas. So we have all 12 just for thematics. And then we move on next to the 4 sovereigns. So we have 2 copies of Iban Wumon Ace. Iban Wumon Ace, depending on your board state, can be really, really good. If your opponent allows you to have multiple Devas on the field, if you blast Digivolve or regular Digivolve with this, for each Deva or 4 sovereign you have on your side of the field, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, and they cannot unsuspend during your opponent's unsuspend phase. However, they can still unsuspend due to other effects, so keep that in mind. It's on play when Digivolving. It does have a 7 play cost for the most part. All the Devas have a 7 play cost, so you can play a level 5 or you can play as level 6. I'd only advise playing a level 6 if you're fairly confident you can protect it from option cards or just Digimon deletion effects, or if you want to play and you're baiting your opponent to deleting it so you can get rid of something else on their side of the board with its I call it parting gift effect. So one good thing about the 4 sovereigns, yes, they are ace monsters, so that means when they're deleted, you're going to flow memory over to your opponent. For the 4 sovereigns, when it's deleted, you're going to get 4. But the 4 sovereigns also have all of them have an on deletion skill. So Iban Wumon says, delete one of your opponent's suspended Digimon. So Iban Wumon can come out for, like, they blast Digivolve or whatever, and if they delete it right after it suspends one of your opponent's Digimon, it's taking something with it unless it has protection. So that's the little nice, not contingency plan, but a little nice parting gift for that the Devas have. But next we'll move on to 2 copies of Shushamon Ace. Shushamon Ace allows you to put a little bit more pressure into your opponent. So it can blast Digivolve. It has a win Digivolution skill. By deleting one Digimon with Deva in its trait, doesn't matter which side of the field, or 6,000 DP or less, again, doesn't matter which side of the field, it can gain security attack +1. So if this Digimon uses effect and deletes anything with its effect, it's checking for 2 checks. So you can use this to get rid of low power blockers on your opponent's side of the board, or maybe an anti-floodgate, just to clear that off the board. That's another nice. And it's a when Digivolving and when attacking, so you can get this effect off multiple times. Its on deletion skill is delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the highest DP. For the most part, those are usually the ones you want to get rid of 9 times out of 10 anyway. So this is another good. I prefer this on deletion skill to Iban Wumon. Iban Wumon, your opponent might move out, Digivolve, delete your Iban Wumon with its own Digivolution skill, and Iban Wumon won't be able to take anything with it. So that's why I kind of prefer Shushamon to Iban Wumon, at least early game. But yeah, I digress. Next, we're going to move on to 3 copies of Azulongmon Ace. Azulongmon Ace is one of the better ones to get early game, only because it's on play when Digivolving. Return one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon to the hand, then unsuspend one of your Digimon with Deva or 4 Great Dragons or 4 Sovereigns trait. So, early game, if your opponent's in the battle area and they're building up their stack, if they stop at level 5 or below, you can just, I don't advise hard slapping it down, but early, you can, before they have time to get to their top end level 6, you can bounce it right back to hand, and then they have to spend time rebuilding that stack. So it gives you a little bit more time on your end. Its on deletion skill is delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the highest level. Wait, did I say highest? This one's highest DP, this one's highest level. Again, for the most part, 9 times out of 10, the one with the highest level and the one with the most DP are the targets you really are concerned with more times than not. So these 2 are the better early opening ones. All right, and for the last one, one copy of Baihumon Ace. Baihuman Ace is actually really interesting, and he does have a lot more versatility. If I ran more actual Devas in the deck than I currently do, I would up him a little bit more, only because, say you have a Deva out on the board, doesn't really matter which one. Your opponent attacks, you blast Digivolve, they're swinging into security. So if you have more Devas in your deck, then it's a higher likelihood that whatever they check is going to be a Deva. And if they check a Deva while Bahuman Ace is on the field, that battle doesn't happen, and that Ace, I mean not that Ace, that Deva Digimon is then played as normal. So it'll be played, you get its on play, draw a card, and if you don't happen to have anything in your raising area, you can slap another Deva inside the raising area to push out right after that. Another reason why this is good is because, say you're fighting against something like purple. Purple often has a lot of on deletion effects that you kind of want to skirt around. So if you know your opponent is trying to get itself deleted inside of your security, you can Digivolve into Bahuman Ace. That battle won't happen, so it won't, blow up in security. So that forces your opponent to kind of like recheck their strats. So that's one reason I do like Bahuman Ace. Depending on, for the most part, this deck has been performing very well in my matchups, so I don't see me changing it, but I might just try to make a Baihuman Ace, a Baihuman deck itself, just to kind of abuse that a little bit. But yeah, that's all we have for the 4 Sovereigns, so that's the majority of the top end. So next, we're going to move over to the actual boss monster of the deck, and for the most part, the strongest thing in the deck. We run 3 copies of Feng Longmon. I've seen many a deck with 4 copies. The issue with 4 copies, I find, is that if you draw Feng Longmons early in the game, and so you have 2 in hand, it's kind of a dead draw, because now not only do you have 2 in hand, you also have less Devas or whatever to play with. So your draw is going to be really lacking in that instance. And getting Feng Longmon early in and of itself, well, getting 1 copy is good, but getting more than 1, it's really clunky and it doesn't really help, because that means you're not going to have many Devas in trash in order to use a card to kind of get him out affordably, other than if you're at 5, putting your opponent to 10 and then being able to play this out. So you want things in trash before Feng Longmon comes out. So I feel like 3 is a good number. But on play, when attacking by returning up to 4 cards with Deva or Forest Sovereign's trait from your trash at the bottom of the deck, doesn't matter if they're duplicates for this effect. For each one, all of your opponent's Digimon get minus 4,000 DP for the turn. So effectively, with this effect, it can nuke your opponent's entire board unless they have over 16k DP for a Digimon. And truthfully, it's not a once per turn. It's not. There aren't too many situations where you can unsuspend this easily in this current deck build, but if you can just keep doing it. And yeah, I haven't found a way to abuse it, but I'm still looking for it. In addition, when attacking, for each of your Digimon with 4 Sovereign's trait in play, not in its inheritables, trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. So it can swing and strip, and that's also another good thing about this. So you can keep this in raising if your opponent's at that last security, and especially if your opponent's running a set control deck, you might want to try to get as many 4 Sovereigns on the field and then have them move out and swing. That way you can trash the security rather than checking it. But one of the best things about Feng Longmon is its all-turn skill. This Digimon isn't affected by the effects of your opponent's Digimon. So it's invulnerable to all your opponent's Digimon, which means the only way to really deal with Feng Longmon is to stampede over it or use an option card. So that's why set control is kind of a pain for this deck, because unless you can reliably trash their security rather than checking it, Feng Longmon probably not going to survive that battle. But yeah, so that's it for the top end. The only thing left over is the option cards. So we run 4 copies. of Loyalty Deeper Than the Sea. This is your searcher and reorganizer. So while you have a Deva or a 4 Sovereign trait, you can ignore color requirements. It really doesn't matter with this deck because since, one, we're running Mother D Reaper, you're going to have a white source anyway, and there's another reason why it's not going to matter too much. But main, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. Place one card with Deva or 4 Sovereign trait among them to the bottom Digivolution card of one of your Digimon, or add it to your hand. Then you can return the rest to the top or bottom in any order. So this card cannot search Feng Longmon. However, it can place Feng Longmon to the top of the card you search. So you don't bottom deck it and you have to wait until it cycles back up to get it again. No. So that's why this card is actually really good. And the fact that, one, it's only cost 1. If you have something like Majiramon on the board, it's free because you'll gain a memory right after you use it. And the other thing that makes this card really good is that it does have the Deva trait. So it counts towards Feng Longmon's one of the requirement for one of the other cards, and Feng Longmon's requirement to return cards from the trash to the deck in order to reduce DP. That's another reason why this card is actually really good. So the next and last, put these away, I run 2 copies of Holy Beast Great Cardinal Positions. So while you have a Digimon 4 Sovereign, blah, 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 ignore color requirements. It does have a beefy 12 play cost originally. However, when this card would be used, reduce the play cost by 1 for each Deva or 4 Sovereigns trait in your trash with a different name. So that's another reason why I run 1 of each. It's less likely that I'll have duplicates of a name. So whenever a Deva goes to trash, it's always 1, 2, 3, always adding up to making so I can play this for cheaper. Main skill, you may play one Digimon card with Feng Longmon in its name from your hand without paying the cost. So if you have 12 Devas or 4 Sovereign or either of the options in the trash with different names, let me clarify that, you can play this out for free. And then play Feng Longmon out, use Feng Longmon's on-play skill, potentially nuke a board, and then next turn, either your opponent has to spend all those resources, like a high-cost resource, to get rid of Feng Longmon with an option, because that's really the only way to get rid of it, unless your opponent's running Raid. Yeah, this is going to get your boss monster out for cheaper or free, depending on how you play it. And its security effect is return 1 card with Feng Longmon and its name from your trash to the hand, then add this card back to your hand. So if they run into it in security, or if it was milled somehow from the top of your deck due to your opponent's effect, if this card checked in security, you can grab it right back and then play this card and then play out the Feng Longmon. Because odds are, if they're playing the mill option, you're going to have more than one different name Deva in your trash or one of the 4 Great Sovereigns. So you're going to be able to play this for cheaper. Another good thing, this card has 4 Great Sovereigns trait. So again, it counts towards the qualification for Feng Longmon. And this card can be searched with Loyalty Deeper Than the Sea, which is multiple reasons why I don't think I need more than 2, especially with me only running 3 Feng Longmons. This card can be recycled with Feng Longmon. It can be searched with Loyalty Deeper Than the Sea. And there's another reason why 2 copies are good enough. So that's it for the normal cards that you'll see in a Feng Longmon deck. Deva deck. These next cards are my tech choices. So things that seem to work well in the way I play it and the way thematically I like the deck to work. So I do run currently 3 copies of Mother D Reaper. Really, I've only ever needed 1. I haven't played against too many raid decks, so I haven't had too many people running this big thing over. So I run 3 only because I found 3. I know I have 1 somewhere else, but I hardly ever think I'm going to need more than this. But I do run Mother D Reaper so that I can use the options for free. Well, not use the options for free. I can use the options without worrying about having a Deva on the board or anything like that. So I can just hatch Mother D Reaper and then use the option as I see fit. But since also, if you are familiar with Season 3 Digimon Tamers of Digimon, Mother D Reaper and the Devas do have a little bit of a history, so I thought it'd be neat to, kind of incorporate both of them inside of a deck. So, since we do run Mother D Reaper, we decided we're going to run a grand whopping total, doop, 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 and doop, I believe. We run a max place set of 10 ADR O2 Searcher. The reason why we do this deck does not have the card advantage that you typically would get from Digivolving up from Rookie to whatever level you're going to. So you can't really Digivolve, except if you're Blast Digivolving or normal Digivolving, but you don't really get that draw power. So this is to make up for that lack of draw power. So Mother D Reaper is on the board. Use Searcher skill to play it out for 1, and then you draw a card. So you get 1 draw for 1 cost. You absorb, and then every other ARD Searcher you play, not in the same turn, but next turn you play ARD Searcher for free by using Mother D Reapers, draw a card, and then assimilate. By doing this, you're effectively getting a free draw every time you use Mother D Reaper's effect to play this out for free. And that helps mitigate some of the issue of not having that same draw power that you get. So that's the reason why we do run ARD O2 Searcher. Now, since we are running 10 copies of, I'm just going to say Searcher, since we are running 10 copies of AR Searcher, it's not outside the line of reason that since this is a somewhat slower deck, we could get 6 copies of Searcher in Mother D Reaper sources. So we do additionally run 2 copies of ADR 09 Gatekeeper. So Gatekeeper has saved me multiple times. For the most part, I've never gotten to a state where the game lasted long enough for me to get 6 sources under Mother D Reaper for the security tag -1 effect to matter. However, there has been more than one time when Gatekeeper has been inside of my security, they ran into it, instantly comes out into play, and then triggers heal. And that forces my opponent to think of a different strategy because that's another check that they were not expecting. And if they check it in security, you now have a 10k DP Digimon on board that can swing next turn. And if they happen to let you get 6 cards under Mother D Reaper, then all of their Digimon have security attack -1, so they must give themselves more security attack, or they must deal with this card, otherwise they will not be able to perform any other checks. This card has saved me multiple times. I'm contemplating bumping it up to 3, but for right now, at the current build, 2 is enough. And this card also does help deal with this deck's matchup issue. So this deck does have a matchup issue in the fact that it does not deal well with Swarm early game. Late game, it might be able to mitigate it, but early game, it does become a bit of a problem. So if you are able, again, 6 turns would have to pass for this to be able to take effect. But this does keep them on their toes if they know that this is in the deck. So they're more concentrated on looking at this rather than you doing your other plays with the Devas. But yeah, we run 2 copies of ADR 09 Gatekeeper. Put that to the side and put you with your brethren. So for the last tech cards, we run 2 copies of Hiro Manakawa. Hiro Manakawa is here because 1, he's a memory setter, and 2, whenever you swing with a level 5 or greater, which is almost every Digimon in this deck, it gives you additional 2,000 power. It's good for when you're trying to do your offensive play with things like Shushamon or any of the 4 sovereign that you Digivolve on top of a red Digimon. So then it would have security attack +2. By having Hero, they would be swinging with, again, if you're swinging with your 4 sovereign, they'd be swinging with 14k DP, 2 checks. By putting it up to 14k, it's a lot more likely that they'll be able to survive the checks and not risk getting deleted inside security and risking the overflow. So that's some of the reasons why we run Hiro Manakawa. For the next ones, we run 3 copies of Crimson Blaze. So we run Crimson Blaze at 3 for, again, this deck does have a bit of a anti-swarm well, it has a swarm problem, so things like Bloom Lordmon, I believe that's the right name, Bloom Lordmon, things that fill up the field quick and can rush you down with disposable pawns are challenging for this deck. So that's why we run Crimson Blaze, and also why we run Hero Monokama just for red, so we can use Crimson Blaze. Reduce the memory cost for each Digimon your opponent has. So if they're swarming you, this card can become free or relatively cheap. And then your opponent cannot play Digimon by effects. Bloom Lordmon does that quite often. So that kind of slows that down or mitigates that completely. And then delete all your opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less. So this just kind of is a somewhat deterrent for going really wide with low power mons on board. Now, I do want to replace at least one of these copies with one more copy of the card that I'm about to reveal next. And that card is Death X-Mon. So Death X-Mon is also here for anti-swarm, because if your opponent tries to go really wide, this can come out for almost free. And then they must answer this card or present a body for sacrifice for Death X-Mon as they end their turn. Also, another interesting thing to note, let me go back and find it. Ibonwu, Shushaomon, outside of Azulongmon, here we go. All of these 4 sovereigns can just digivolve into Death X-Mon. I mean, it is for 6, but you don't have to worry about hard slapping it down if your opponent's trying to, stay with a low amount of cards on field just because they know you have Death X-Mon. So yeah, this can digivolve off of almost any of the 4 sovereign in your deck outside of a Zulongmon. So that's another good reason to have this card in the deck. I would like 2 copies. I don't have 2 at the moment. Working on procuring at least 1 more. But yeah, this is also for anti-swarm, just CC. That's what this is in here for. All right. So that is the deck build. And then we're going to get into just basic strategies. So we're going to run into basic strategies, or first turn, what you're looking for. So do a bit of a shuffle, and then we're going to look at our top 5 cards. So what you're looking for, turn 1, is at least Loyalty Deeper Than the Sea or a Searcher, just because turn 1, you can flip over Mother D Reaper, play this for 1, give your opponent 1, resolve any effect, regardless if it's draw a card, or resolve this to search and filter the top of your deck the way you want, or put those cards at the bottom. It gives your opponent 1 memory so that they can't do too much first turn, because giving your opponent 7 memory at the beginning of the game is not a good strategy at all. So that's why first turn you always want to try to find something like Loyalty Deeper Than the Sea or a Searcher, especially if you're going first. If you're going second, you still want to try to find one of these, but then you want to have at least two, 3 is more preferable, at least 1 of your Ace Digimon, and then 1 copy of Feng Longmon. So you at least want to have something like this turn 1. So if you choose to play your Deva, again, turn 1 is not really a good idea. You give outright 7 memory. But if you're going second, at least you wouldn't be giving your opponent 7 memory, so you could play this out, put them to 5, draw a card, put this in raising, set yourself up for a Blast Digivolution if need be, or if they get rid of this before that, you can move out with this next turn and then Digivolve, bounce something back to hand, and then draw. So you have some options with that. The reason why you want to get Feng Longmon early is because you don't want to waste your time digging through your deck trying to get to this card. As the game progresses, you're going to get at least 3-4 cards in trash, especially with your opponent checking your security. So when you get to your Holy Beast, Great Cardinal positions, you're already going to be able to play it for cheap. Now, when you want to hatch with Mother is kind of arbitrary because it depends. One, if you got your Searcher, you're going to want to try to hatch and then move out more quicker than later. If you're going second, you might hold off on that just because you might want to err towards playing your Devas. Because if you hatch Mother and then play the Deva, you don't have the spot to play the Deva in the raising area. So you're going to have to pick and choose when's your best time to do that. So again, turn 2, you're more than likely going to want to try to play a Deva from hand. Turn 1, you're going to try to aim for Loyalty Deeper Than the Sea or trying to get a Searcher just for that draw and that filtering on that. So that's there. So you're also going to try to want to stay on more lookout for your black Digimon. So the black Digimon I like mostly because if you have it out in the field and your opponent swings, this is how the game mechanics and, well, how the game flow works. So your opponent swings, then now you have your blast window. So they declare intent, you can blast Digivolve, draw a card, resolve any of your blast Digivolution effects. But since now, it passes into the block phase. I mean, the block window. So if your opponent attacks, you resolve any effect. If that effect does not stop your opponent's attack, you then have the option to block. If your opponent is weaker than it, it's just going to be deleted that way. However, you then also have, if your opponent is stronger than you, you have the option to block if you want, and if that on deletion effect will benefit you the most in that time. So they could be at like 1 memory, you block, they go back to 5, yes, but you can take their big monster with it, which then forces them to rethink their strategy. So that's why the black are a little bit more preferable and why I have more copies of black Digimon in this, black Devas than any of the other ones. So there's that. So that's more defensive strategies. So for the offensive strategies, we have this. Okay, so let's say for our offensive strategy, the turn before we played Synduramon, and then right after that, it allowed us to play Indramon inside of our breeding area. When your opponent attacks security, it happened to play Hiro Manakawa, or you spent another turn and played Hiro Manakawa and passed turn. Doesn't really matter if Synduramon's there. Synduramon's just there for his decoy. It's always good to just have on hand. And yeah, that's the main reason. So say this is your board state when it comes back to your turn next time. Doesn't really matter if you're security. This is just pure offensive. So we're not really worried about defense at this point. So you move out with Indramon. Indramon, then you can Digivolve into Shushaumon because since you have a Hiro Manakawa, you're set to 3. So you Digivolve, you can delete Synduramon or any other of your Deva or any of your opponent's Digimon that meets 6,000 below DP. And then Shushaumon will get security attack +1. So now Shushaumon would have security attack +1 due to its effect, security attack +1 due to its inheritable, and its innate security attack that it normally has for doing checks. So this time you can swing with Shushaumon, rest Hiro Manakawa. Now you're swinging with a Digimon that has 14k DP and 3 checks. So it's clearing a whole bunch of your opponent's security if it survives. So you really want to do this when at least your opponent has 1 Digimon on board, because if you know your opponent's running a deck that has a lot of security bombs, more so any security bombs that delete. Things that de-Digivolve, this is totally different. You're going to want to invest in a different strategy. More so, you're either going to want to hard slap your 4 Great Sovereigns down, or you're just going to want to kind of rush with your level 5s. But this is one of the aggro strategies that I use. Just leave it in security, wait until you get Shushaumon. If they don't have a blocker on board that's over 6,000, move out, Digivolve, swing. Unless it runs into an option, it's probably going to survive with 14k DP anyway. So that's one offensive strategy. There is one more. So let's say we run that same exact playback, except this time instead of, here we go. Instead of Indramon inside of the raising area, we had Antilamon. So we had Antilamon, Synduramon still out there. We move out with Antilamon, and then Since Antilamon has Alliance, we arrest Mother D Reaper. In this situation, Mother D Reaper has 16. This has 8, so that's 24. It'd be swinging on your opponent's security, 2 checks with 24. If your life is, let's say, for example, in this instance, 0, when the attack ends, and more than likely, again, unless you're hitting a security bomb, you're going to recover. So then that puts your opponent in a spot where either they have to deal with this card and then risk multiple checks and recovering. So either they have to deal with this or deal with the other card that's giving it the ability to Alliance, which means they're more than likely going to try to swing over this or delete it with an effect. If they try to delete it with an effect, you could use Enduramon to decoy, delete that instead, and then they still have to try to deal with this. So either if they have enough memory, they can probably activate another option card and try to delete it that way or with a Digimon effect, or they have to try to run over it. If they try to run over it, you can immediately Digivolve into another Ace Digimon, which will hopefully be stronger than whatever's trying to attack into it, or be weaker than it, but it's, again, on deletion effect, is enough to deal with whatever's trying to swing over it. So these, you can't be too shackled to the overflow when using these ace monsters. You have to think of the utility that they bring to the game as the game's progressing. So is it worth losing 4 memory to delete whatever is trying to swing at you, or delete, well, for this one, it'd be whatever the highest level. So depending on what you have, what Ace Digimon you have in hand, would depend on if it's worth Blast Digivolving, losing 4 memory, drawing 1 card, but getting that on deletion effect. You have to always constantly be gauging that. So this deck has a lot of moving pieces, and it forces your opponent to kind of think on their toes. But while they're thinking on their toes, they have to focus on your Digimon, not so much on your security. And while they're doing that, you're steadily getting the cards in your trash that you need to play Fang Longmon. And if you get Fang Longmon on the board, so say, for example, in this instance, I have Mother D Reaper, so I meet the color requirements. I'm at 3. I'm able to play Holy Beast Great Cardinal Positions. Now, instead of for 12, I can play it for 3 less, so it'd be 9 in this instance, but still it's worth it to get this on the board anyway. So play for 9, it puts your opponent to 6, and then you can return all 4 of these back to the bottom of your deck, and then reduce your opponent's entire board by 16 KDP, and for the most part, nothing's surviving that. So Fang Longmon is, I'm not going to say your win condition, but it puts an immense amount of pressure on your opponent to either then play a big option card that will remove him from play, or just leave him on the board and hope that they can rush you down quicker, to which you then, if you have more of your Devas on board, you can just Blast Digivolve and kind of disrupt them as things go. So that's pretty much the strategy that goes along with using this deck. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything that I missed, any other strategies that I could add that, would make this deck better overall. Just drop them. And thanks for joining in. And until the next time, have a good one. All right, everyone. Bye-bye.